thoughts and prayers are with Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin after a Monday Night Football incident. That goes for Wayne, TC, David Walker, our guest. We're all praying for the NFL community, the Bills team, and especially Damar Hamlin and his family. Welcome to another ATL Prime Sports. I'm Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee, and of course, Todd Corder on the other side of Atlanta. You can find us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. Please like, please subscribe. Personal Twitters at JJGetYouOne for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, and at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder. How's everyone doing tonight? Wayne, I'll start off with you, man.
Well, I'm getting ready for basketball. It has been a while. Memphis' last game down in Tulane did not end the way that anyone would have expected to. Tulane has quite a team, both in football and basketball now, so that's pretty cool for them. But we play East Carolina this Saturday, and I will be there.
TC, how you doing this evening, man?
Doing great. I just want to say my thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin and all in his family and the Buffalo Bills and organization, along with his teammates and friends and et cetera. It's something that I've never seen on the field or witnessed, and I'm 58 years old. And, it takes me back to 1971. There was an incident in the Detroit Lions game at Old Tiger Stadium when the Lions were playing the Chicago Bears, and a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions back in the day collapsed right next to Dick Butkus, and he was not revived. He was announced that he passed away at the hospital there in Detroit. There was 62 seconds remaining in the game, and they finished the game. That tells you how things have changed differently today than they are back in the day. And second of all, I want to congratulate TCU and Georgia for getting to the national championship game. Quite an accomplishment. The two Big Ten schools, Ohio State and Michigan, gave them all they could. And despite that, they were able to win it and play in this game on Monday night. It'll be a dandy one, I think, for a little while, for a quarter. We'll see how long TCU stays in it. I'm going to compare this one to Alabama and Notre Dame years ago in the BCS, where I think Georgia will. I'm going to give it away. I think they're going to run away with it.
We will see. I'm doing great. Been ill for the last couple of weeks, finally feeling healthy. And, man, what an exciting college football bowl season it was. And, again, I'll say it, my thoughts and prayers are with Damar Hamlin, the Bills, and the NFL Players Association, the NFL community all the way down. What's on tap for today's show? We do have David Walker, author and contributor for The Rebel Walk. You can find The Rebel Walk at The Rebel Walk on Twitter, and you can find David Walker on Twitter at David Walker QB. He'll join us. We'll talk some college football, some NFL, little this, little that with them. We're going to talk NFL playoff scenarios. We will break down the college football playoff national championship, and of course, our pick six. We're going to sprinkle in a little college basketball in the pick six for you today, because you do have picks in basketball as well, the pick and roll. So we're still going to call it the pick six with some basketball. And without further ado, we welcome our guest from the Rebel Walk, David Walker, the quarterback himself. David, welcome to ATL Prime Sports. Happy New Year to you, and thanks for coming on.
Hey, Happy New Year to you guys too. Glad to be here. Appreciate it very much. I was thinking about Damar Hamlin, and it's just one of those things that happens sometimes. It's very rare thing. We've seen little leaguers get hit in the chest, pitchers with line drives back, and it's a very rare thing. I think if you catch the heart in between beats at just a particular time where it's susceptible, then the electric shock goes into effect, and it stops the heart where it's not getting the electrical circuits that it needs to keep beating. And apparently this is what happened to Hamlin. And of course, all our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. There has been some improvement from what I've seen over the last couple of nights. So that is the good news. My personal thoughts would be somehow, some way for Buffalo and Cincinnati to end up in the AFC Championship game, and for DeMar to be there on the sideline with them and taking in the game with everyone in the world. And I don't know if the seedings and the breakdowns are going to allow for that, but I certainly would think that would be a great and fitting completion to this horrible, horrible thing that's happened around the football world. It's just it brought everything to a stop, and as it should have. And it's of course we're with him all the way. I, as a football coach in high school in Houston, had 3 players over the course of my time there go down from heat exhaustion and heat stroke, and I can't tell you how scary and traumatic it is to have one of your kids laying there on the ground, motionless, pale, cold, and completely unconscious. All 3 went to the hospital. All 3, of course, made it, but it is a situation nobody wants to be in. One of these, and the situation outside wasn't even, considered to be dangerous. And it's just one of those things that can occur. And we see it happen every year in high school and college sports. And some kids, they go down. I mean, we lose them. And so, when they took prayer away in some states from high schools, I disagreed with it, because you're going into a football game, you're going into a contest where bad things can happen, broken necks happen, paralysis happens, death happens. And I think prayer is a very important part of the process. And I think it gives some kids, if not a lot of kids, the confidence to continue playing. We always heard that if you're going full speed, you don't get hurt. And, of course, that's not the case. But as Todd and JJ, everybody has said, I mean, we just hope the best for DeMar and that he pulls out of it. And thank God that we had people there who knew what they were doing, as I did when my 3 kids went down, to get him to a safer place and get him where he could get the excellent health care that he needed at that time.
David, well said, number one. Number two, I've experienced it when my son passed out playing football his 8th grade season. He come off the field, and their team was getting quite hammered that day, pretty lopsided score, and he come off the field putting 2 hands on top of his head, each hand on each side of the helmet. And I thought to myself, he's either frustrated that he's being taken out or he has an injury. And sure enough, I told my wife at the time, I'll be right back. And I went down there, and the first word I heard was concussion. And my heart dropped right from my chest to my feet. And David, I motioned for her to come down. He stayed awake for the longest time. Eventually, he passed out. And I tell you what, my wife in the ambulance with him, as a mom should, and someone had driven me to the hospital. And I tell you what, good thing for cell phones, because she told me that, he woke back up and everything was going to be okay. They were going through all the tests. By the time I got there, I was quite relieved. And in terms of DeMar Hamlin going down, you mentioned it. Prayer to me is huge. You saw the players on the field with prayer. You saw the play-by-play and the color announcer for ESPN on Monday Night Football, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, do a tremendous job. I thought their tone and their professionalism was fantastic. And it's just something that prayer needs to come back in schools today. I know it's something political, and I really don't care. It needs to come back because, it needs to come back. There's just no other way about it. I mean, us as a society, we need prayer, and we all pray that DeMar and his family and the Buffalo Bills and his teammates and everything goes well. And gosh, it's really hard to talk about, but I will say this, as of right now, the National Football League is going to play all the games this weekend. And as of right now, they plan on having the Buffalo-Cincinnati game made up. And David, you're right, your last point. Boy, I would love to see a Buffalo-Cincinnati AFC Championship game. It would be appropriate. And thank you for allowing me to say this, guys, on the platform. I'm sorry if I went a little long.
All right. Well, this situation is both emotional, and I think it's a pivotal point for the NFL to make some changes. I don't think those changes need to come in the way of how the game is called or the implementation of new on the field rules, but just like NASCAR did when they went through their sea change of how they built the cars, had the drivers in the car and the tracks. I think there needs to be some equipment changes that happen that are mandated across the board and is the same for everybody. And there needs to be a lot of research done in that direction, because I think that is the best way to, prevent or at least circumvent some of these things happening in the future.
Yeah, my comment on this is hats off to the NFL. They did a wonderful job at contacting the Players Association, and hats off to the NFL again for having the medical personnel on the field, the AEDs, the CPR certified technicians, the doctors, eye doctors, dentists. They got a total, I think it was 20 something, 25 plus doctors, health physicians on the field. Hats off the NFL. They did it right. They postponed the game. If you saw my Twitter feed, I was all over it all night saying, postpone this game. Football does not matter. We all feel the same on that. Let's get a little on the lighthearted side and transition away from this emotional subject, as we've all seen.
David, one question real quick.
Sure, go ahead, and I'll get the next one.
All right, thank you. David, I want to ask you a question. You and I talked about this privately on the phone the other day. They have heart guards in baseball, and you mentioned other sports having this injury way more than football, which is really a surprise to me and JJ and Dwayne. David, do you see them coming up with some extra protection for the heart? I know that padding is top notch today, especially compared to back in the day when you played. Do you think someone's going to come up with something now to protect the heart even more in that chest area?
Oh yeah, there'll be some kind of design that comes out, and I think it's probably being processed right now. When I was playing it back in the mid '70s, I had a rib fractured in the lower part of my back, about the mid part of my back, and it's just a hairline fracture, and I was still able to play with it. But all we could do was put a knee pad back there and then wrap around my mid torso, and just hope that I didn't get hit there again. And it was very soon after that the flak jacket was made for Dan Pastorini. And I mean within the next year. And I'm thinking, boy, if I'd have just had a flak jacket on, which now all quarterbacks and a lot of players wear, running backs, they all wear them because, they protect the rib cage. And I think that's a lot of players have gotten away from pads. I mean, you don't see knee pads much anymore, you don't see hip pads. And I think from here on out, the NFL is going to require, as I think many colleges and high schools will, to get something to protect that heart, because this is an eye opener. I mean, this is what you see that gets changes made, as it did for Dan Pastorini when he fractured a rib. That's when the flak jacket came. And I'm sure they're going to be doing something here, and they need to. I mean, it's a very rare occurrence, but if it's going to happen once, it could be your kid. It could be anybody out there. He's the everyman, and Hamlin is. So, yeah, I think there's going to be some kind of scientific work done on this real quick, and get that issue taken care of, and it will be mandatory for everyone.
And I also think what another good thing that will come of this is the NFL, after this situation, will probably have a backup plan if this happens again. So then they'll have more of a by the book rules if this ever happens again. And again, hats off to the NFL. They handled it with precision, absolute precision from top to
No question.
bottom. Talking to the players, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. Hats off to you guys. Scott Van Pelt, Coley Hamlin. The unbelievable reporting by ESPN and Monday Night Football was just Emmy award worthy, and I really hope they get one. Let's get off the subject. I do want to mention to the quarterback, we got a big one Monday night. The Dogs go for their back-to-back title opportunity. David, what do you see in this game that could keep TCU in it, and vice versa for Georgia? What do they do to cover the spread for all those people in Vegas?
That's an interesting point because, really the championship game was probably played between Georgia and Ohio State, because when you look at the Vegas odds anyway, they had both of those teams to be favored in a championship game against TCU or Michigan. Even Ohio State was going to be a 3-point favorite over Michigan. So, in effect, that was our de facto championship game between Ohio State and Georgia. And, with Ohio State jumping out to a 21-7 lead and Stroud just looking unstoppable, it did not look good for Georgia. I mean, you got to – and then – what was it, another 35-24 lead by Ohio State. I mean, there was just pressure on this Georgia football team that many Georgia fans, and JJ, I'm sure you're one of them, didn't know if they were going to be able to come out of it. And then, of course, as has been the case with Stetson Bennett throughout his career, when it was time to win, he won. I mean, that was just a beautiful drive that he put together at the end there to win the football game. Just unbelievably crazy how the defense came together and got the job done when they needed to, and then the offense went down the field. And most people wouldn't know this, but you're looking at a quarterback for Georgia who has more passing yards than Max Duggan does at TCU, and I would think that would be the opposite, because TCU wins football games by going deep, running the go route about every third play, and they hit them. And that's what they did with Michigan. And then they had the great running game, and then Michigan didn't quite know what to do with it because TCU wasn't supposed to be this good. And just hats off to Sonny Dykes. He's done such a wonderful job. I'm sure A&M and Texas are screaming in the background about TCU being the team that's going to the national championship game, and them with all their money and all their tradition and all this and all that are sitting at home and didn't even have a shot at anything like this. Sonny Dykes in his first year, and doing it without Zach Evans, who's at Ole Miss. I mean, it's just an incredible story with the backup quarterback who wasn't even starting the first couple of weeks of the season, who ends up in the Heisman room in New York City. So I think if TCU comes out strong like they will, TCU is not intimidated by anybody. You get to thinking that both favorites are going to win in the semifinals. They're going to be low-scoring games because Georgia's got such a great defense and Michigan's got such a great defense, and it's just the opposite. I mean, it's lights out scoring. So we're going to see. It's going to be an outstanding game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. And, I just can't count TCU out. As I said last time we talked, I couldn't count them out against Michigan. I can't count them out against Georgia.
I'll tell you, a turning point in that game to me that not a lot of people are talking about, of course, the timeout from Kirby Smart. But on the other hand, it was on the one of the last drives, I think the second to last drive for Ohio State, Jalen Carter batted a pass that would have been pass interference on Javon Bullard. But because Jalen Carter batted the pass, it was nullified because of the contact and the tip. That was a huge play. Ohio State punts, Georgia goes back. The next thing is a 75-yard touchdown pass to Arian Smith. And, well, that started the snowball effect of the MO. So I think that was a very key part of that game. And Well, I'm going to
No
switch
doubt.
over to the NFL for you, David, unless anybody has any final questions for David on the.
I do, David. The turning point of the game was obvious to me. It was when Marvin Harrison
Of
took
course.
that hit back in the end zone. Without that, I don't think Georgia comes back and wins the game at all. It changed Georgia's scheme defensively dramatically. They didn't have to key on Harrison anymore. They could cover the other receivers. Marvin was a difference maker. Ringo couldn't cover him. Nobody could cover him. They tried to double cover him. They still couldn't cover him. And, whether this was targeting or not, it's been much debated. I definitely think it was targeting. The hit was with the shoulder. After all, it did get the upper part of the shoulder and the neck. And Article 4 of the targeting rules in college football says it doesn't matter what you lead with. If someone is hit above the shoulder, in the neck area, in the head, it is targeting. And how is it not targeting if he got a concussion? To me, that changed the entire game. Now, give Georgia credit, David. They came back. They took advantage of the situation. The quarterback was just simply brilliant in the fourth quarter. I thought it was his best quarter of his college football career, which is saying something for Stetson Bennett, who's had a remarkable career. Everyone knows the story. David, your thoughts on what I just stated?
Oh, I agree. It was definitely a huge factor in the final score, because you don't know where the game goes, otherwise. And I've looked at the video. I mean, I've these things are getting, I don't know, harder and harder it seems to pin down for different officials. It just seems like you see one that is identical to another, but you're getting different calls. You're getting different results. And I don't know what to do about that situation. I do targeting for me, as I understand it, it's got to be a defensive player with the crown of the helmet, hitting a head or neck area. And it seems like it's so many times not being called correctly, or it's just tough. Even with instant replay, and even with slow motion, and even with all this technology that we have, it's still a very difficult, at times, play to call. I do like the fact that they're expediting some of these replays, where we're not having to call timeout and go look into a screen on the sidelines, where they're just telling them from upstairs what happened. You got this wrong, change it. I think that needs to go more into football and have less delays. But Todd, you're exactly right. Who knows the outcome of that game if that play doesn't occur? What if it doesn't even occur and Harrison plays the rest of the game? We don't know, But as you said, and a very good point, playing the game as it was called, Georgia earned that win somehow, some way. And as I said, if it were the championship game, it would have been one of the all-timers, because it was some kind of football game.
And speaking of that, David, I actually felt that Georgia was penalized because I think Ohio State should have been the 3 seed. I think TCU should have been penalized for losing to a 3-loss Kansas State team. I thought it should have been Georgia versus Texas Christian and Michigan versus Ohio State. So that's something for another day. But I agree with you. I think targeting needs to be, instead of 5 articles, let's get it down to maybe 2 or 3. So that way everybody can get on the same page, because I do think with 5 articles, it becomes an opinion of the referee.
Yeah.
And I do think the referee was in a hard decision there, because if that penalty is called targeting, Bullard's out for, let's say, the first half of the national championship game. And that is a big deal, and it goes in the minds of these refs. It has to. That's my opinion. I don't know that for fact. But it would have to go into a mind of a referee. So with that, I'll transition to the NFL. We're running out of time, David. Give me an AFC championship and an NFC championship. Basically, your 2 favorites from each league in the NFL.
Well, I tell you what, I got to go with Buffalo and Cincinnati, and I'm going to stick with them all the way. since we've already discussed that. Over in the NFC, I mean, there's still so much to be decided over there. I mean, Minnesota would look hot for a while. Now they've cooled off significantly. So I'm going to have to hold off on the NFC a little bit. I mean,
I don't blame you.
you have
It's a tough call.
you have the Green Bay Packers coming out of nowhere. I mean they were I mean, next to the bottom in terms of having a chance to get in, and now we don't know. We don't know what it's going to be. But getting back to Buffalo and Cincinnati real quick, if they do not play the game at all, if they do not finish that game at all, which I see that as probably a foreseeable future there, thankfully we have ties in the NFL. You can go to overtime and still end up in a tie game. So if they just call this a tie or no play, then that's just how it works out, and they work the seedings from there. So I don't think it's going to be played. I think I'm pulling for those two teams to be in the finals. Cincinnati is certainly on a roll. Buffalo has got all the talent in the world, and we'll see what happens over there in the NFC.
David, can I say?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that, JJ. I see it being played. There is 2 weeks in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. They'll have that extra week. They can push back the playoffs. It's really hard to push back the Super Bowl. The only time, to my recollection, they ever pushed back the Super Bowl was because of 9/11. I believe they did push it back, or they used that extra week. I can't recall which one it was, but they'll use the extra week, David. I believe they'll get the game in just because of the seeding significance, importance of it. Not at all to take away what happened on the field on Monday Night Football, which is something that every time I think about it, I just want to choke up. I just think it's going to get it in because of that extra week. Now, if they didn't have the extra week, I would totally agree with you. I can't think of, unless something happened to DeMar, and then we're talking about a completely a different story. And please God, do not let that happen.
Yeah, please. Prayers still with Damar Hamlin, as he's still looks like he's in a little better condition, but still critical. And the ramifications of that game are huge, Todd. It could decide the number one seed in the AFC. So absolutely huge. David, want to say thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts from you, David, on anything we've talked about?
Well, I just want to say what a great bowl season it was and how much I enjoyed it personally. I mean, there were just some outstanding games, outstanding comebacks. You look at Mississippi State and Tulane. Yes. They led their games for 13 seconds combined and won those games. I mean, it was just incredible. The comeback that Tulane had against Southern California and the Heisman Trophy winner was just unbelievable. And it's just such great college football played this last week. And, I'm going through withdrawals right now because it's so long before the next game, and then it's done. And then I don't know what I'm going to do after that. But we'll have the playoffs to go into, I guess. But thank you guys for having me on. I certainly appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Hey, David, before you go, could you imagine if we had 12-team playoff? More importantly, 16-team playoff. We could definitely have like this in a playoff, and some of the group and 5 schools could certainly be included. It would be much better for college football.
Well, I think the NCAA has just dogged it for so many decades, and in terms of what the right thing to do is, that finally we're getting some modern thinking going, and 12 to 16 teams I think would be wonderful. Players are getting paid big-time money right now, so you're not worried about the length of the schedule as much as you used to be. And you just never know who would win that kind of thing. It may come down to the top 2 teams every year, but maybe not. You could have somebody sneak in. They're talking about going to 90 teams now in basketball.
That's
that's not a bad thing. I mean, golly, I love the bowl games, and I love the March Madness, and the more the merrier. So Let's get it.
David, thanks for coming on. We always appreciate it. You can find David on Twitter at David Walker QB. You can find him also at the Rebel Walk and his work there. David, thanks so much. Again, Happy New Year to you and all the Rebel Walk family. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, guys. You have a great day.
You as well. Again, David Walker of the Rebel Walk. Let's quickly get into the national playoff, national championship college football playoff game right quick. Both Georgia and TCU advance with thrilling victories. Let's talk about the news and notes of this UGA-Tennessee game. For me, it's got to be Georgia in the red zone. They've been in the red zone more than any other team in the country, and I think they'll continue to do that. That 3-3-5 should be pretty reliable to run against for Georgia with their stable of backs. I think that's the number one key in this game, and it does look like Darnell Washington could play in this game, and he's a matchup nightmare in the red zone. Early in that game, he was catching some first down passes against Ohio State before he went out. I thought that was a key loss for Georgia too, and that's going to be one of my first keys to that game is Georgia getting in the red zone and staying there consistently, but they got to put the ball in the end zone. That's my number one key. TC, I'll throw it to you, man. First key in the TCU-Georgia game.
No, to me, TCU had the 57th ranked run defense in the country, even though it didn't look like that against Michigan, but they really sold out against the run against Michigan, and Michigan was able to hurt them with a deep pass. And of course, Michigan had a touchdown that was a touchdown that would not end up being a touchdown. Part of the trouble that, it's so hard to officiate a college football game. I realize that, but you have instant replay to get it right. Michigan had a touchdown. It was called back. Yes, his knee hit the 1 yard line, but he didn't have control of the football. When he finally had control of the football, his buttocks back and football was already in the end zone. It was TCU. Did they deserve to be in this game? They were. They were the better team than Michigan on that particular day. If you're asking me, the TCU is a top 4 team in the country, I'm not so sure. I can name 5 teams off the top of my head that I think can beat them, maybe even 10 on a given day, but that's for most teams in college football, but especially them. I think this game is a mismatch in terms of personnel and in terms of matchups. I think the one chance TCU does have is on the deep ball. If Georgia's defense in the front 7 is really good, but the back end is where they're vulnerable. That's the strength of Texas Christian. They do throw the long ball every 3 or 4 plays, and they're going to do it against Georgia. If they can get some semblance of a running game, and they're very capable of doing that, then maybe we have a matchup. But to me, Georgia's too strong on each side of the line of scrimmage, and I see this game a la Notre Dame and Alabama in the BCS championship game years ago.
My final thought on the game is exactly what yours is. It's on the defensive line of UGA. Jalen Carter, subpar game against the Buckeyes. We're really going to need him to turn that around, get after the quarterback, pressure Max Duggan, because if Duggan can run, we saw Georgia is susceptible to the quarterback running, and you mentioned it, the deep pass. If Quentin Johnson can play in this game, he's a little banged up from the Fiesta Bowl, but if he can play, it looks like he may be able to. If he can play, Ringo, Lassiter, Starks, all these cornerbacks are going to have to lock down when they need a lockdown play. They did it against Tennessee. They've shown they can do it. That's my secondary key, and I'm leaning your way, Todd. I'm not going to give away my pick yet. I'll throw it to Wayne. Wayne, tell me why the Horned Frogs, man. What do they do? This? I think they do this.
Yeah, that's it.
What do the Horned Frogs do to win this game? You picked them at the beginning of this thing. You're staying with them, obviously. How do they win this game?
Well, I'm not going to go so much into how they could win the game, but here's some points for both teams. I don't think it is going to be good for either Georgia or TCU to play this back and forth, trading touchdowns all the way to the end of the game. Last person that scores wins. I don't think that's going to benefit either team. I think what each team's going to have to do is they're going to have to get a lead early and maintain it throughout the game. I don't see either team being able to, even though Georgia did come from behind pretty well against Ohio State, I don't see either one of these teams being a come from behind victor in this game.
Oh, I
Wayne,
do.
I like that.
Back
Todd,
all year. I'm sorry, TCU's came back all year long. I see that, and I can see that with Georgia. I mean, they have a big play, explosive offense. Nobody talks about it, but they can throw the football when necessary. They threw it a lot against Ohio State, which really surprised me with that running game and that offensive line. I thought Georgia would establish a line of scrimmage much more trying to run the football. That did surprise me. I know it did you too, JJ.
yeah, no, TCU was able to move the ball through the air and a little bit on the ground with Kendre Miller against Michigan in that Fiesta Bowl. What an exciting game. Best college football playoff semifinals we've had yet. So that was exciting for college football in itself. And Wayne, I'll piggyback on your point. I think time of possession is going to be huge. I think if Georgia runs the ball, wears them out, they will cover the spread. But I think if TCU is able to bust up a couple over the top of Ringo Lassiter, Starks, Christopher Smith in the background, and the safety position back there, I think you're right. TCU may be able to sneak away and cover the spread, maybe even win the game outright. Guys, any final thoughts on the college football playoff national championship?
JJ, I want to say something, go back to what you said earlier about the seeding. It needs to be said. There never has a team lost its final game and not gotten penalized. TCU was never penalized for its loss. They stayed in the 3 slot against Kansas State. Now, I don't think it's fair, and this is another story for another day for sure. A team that doesn't play in a conference championship game has no risk at all to move up the slot, and someone who plays in a conference championship game has all the risk and move down a slot. And that's what happened between Ohio State and USC. And TCU should have moved down. I agree. Ohio State and Michigan should have been the first semifinal. TCU should have played Georgia. Could you imagine Ohio State and playing Michigan in the semifinal? What the ratings would have been? You know what?
Through the roof.
I'm just not sure, as they said in a movie, we're going to be able to take all these boys home with us today. I mean, it would have been a mammoth physical battle to the end. And that's one thing I agree with you on earlier. I guess in terms of the final point of the game, I can't wait until we get a 16-team playoff. I think it's going to go to that instead of this 4-team invitational.
I agree. 16's the way to go. Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, has been begging for it, for lack of a better term right now. But I agree. I think all 10 conference champions should get in, and you have 6 wild cards. That gives everybody a shot to play. That gives you the opportunity for the Cinderella run like you do in the NCAA basketball tournament. Granted, I don't think it will happen that often, but it gives you the ability. That's my final thought. Wayne, any quick final thoughts on the college football playoff national championship bowl season? Anything?
No, I've enjoyed all the games I've watched, and I think I'm going to enjoy this last game as well.
Yes,
hey,
I
Jay,
will.
you mentioned bowl season real quick. I think this is an important point. Unfortunately, due to the playoff, the significance of these bowl games has really been just smashed especially until we get to a certain point in the bowl season. The rest of the games now to the public and the country, not to real college football fans, are really meaningless. And I think that's very sad because it's not meaningless to those kids on the field, especially a team like Eastern Michigan, who won its first bowl game since 1987, to a team and a coach like Chris Creighton, who's taken Eastern Michigan to 6 bowls. Granted, they've won 1, but it's such an accomplishment for a school that almost lost college football before he came along, and they only had 2 in their history. So a lot of folks just don't understand that aspect of these bowl games, and they call them meaningless, which is wrong to the players and the coaches on the field.
I agree with that. I think bowl season, the last week and a half, stands were packed, TVs were watched, and get rid of about 10 total bowl games, make it more interesting. Guys, let's move on to the NFL playoff scenarios. They're almost set. There are some teams that still can make it. Let's talk about how each team can get in. talk about the favorites to win it all. We'll start with the AFC. We'll go in ABC order here. Why not? We're smart here. We got the glasses on. AFC teams that are still alive in the playoff race. Got Jacksonville, Tennessee, Miami, and Pittsburgh. And the scenarios are pretty even for pretty easy for the AFC South title. The Jags win or tie versus the Titans. They're in. Titans win. They're in. So that's that seventh seed. It's one of the last seeds that the winner will host a playoff game. Let's see. Number one seed scenarios: Chiefs clinch with any of the following: win versus the Bills, or a win, excuse me, and a Bills loss, or two Bills losses and the Bengals loss. Bills clinch with any of the following: two wins, win at the Bengals plus a Chiefs loss, or a win versus the Patriots and a Chiefs and Bengals loss in Week 18. Bengals clinch with any of the following: two wins and a Chiefs loss. So a lot still on the table. AFC North title is still on the line as well. The Bengals clinch with a win versus the Ravens, or a win versus or a win tie versus the Bills. And number 7 seed, this is where it gets crazy. Patriots can clinch with a win at the Bills, or a Dolphins loss versus the Jets, and Steelers loss versus the Browns, and Jaguars win versus the Titans. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I'm
Dolphins 8-8.
sorry, my back is killing me along with my buttocks, and I decided to get a pillow to enhance my chair here. I totally apologize.
Hey,
I caught everything.
that's totally fine. We're still going over the scenarios. Dolphins clinch. They're 8-8 with the win versus the Jets and a Patriots loss at the Bills. Steelers clinch with a win versus the Browns and a Dolphins loss versus the Jets and a Patriots loss versus the Bills. Again, we mentioned the Jaguars. They clinch with a loss versus the Titans and losses by Dolphins and Patriots and Steelers. So lots can still happen in the AFC.
Are you out of breath?
I am out of breath, as you can tell. There's a lot to go over there. Guys, let's talk about the AFC right quick. You know, the Bills and the Bengals game is going to be huge if it's played, if it's postponed, into the ramifications of the 1 and 2 seeds. I don't know how to shake out the AFC right now. I still like the Bills, but the mentality of that team is going to have to be compartmentalized. They're going to have to be real professional athletes here, as we all know what has happened. And I think that team has a lot of heart, and that they could still win the Super Bowl. That city is due for one. I still like the Bills. And I tell you what, these Jacksonville Jaguars are pretty good. And if they get in the playoffs, Trevor Lawrence is playing good football, Travis Etienne, and Doug Peterson's been to a Super Bowl before and won it with the backup quarterback. So this guy can coach. This team is ready to play. They got great defense. And I wouldn't want to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. But my two favorites, again, depending on seeding, going to be the Bengals and the Bills. But this Jacksonville Jaguars team, if they win on Sunday, which I do believe they will, and they will get in, they will be a tough out because they'll have a home playoff game. TC, your thoughts on the AFC, and then we'll go to the NFC.
One, I agree totally. Jacksonville, if they get in, they're going to be dangerous out. 2, I like Kansas City to start the year, to get to the Super Bowl, because I think they have the best quarterback currently in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. But it's definitely between Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. The Bengals, they were just in the Super Bowl last year. It's a 3-way race. I'll stay with Kansas City because I picked them at the end of the year, but I wouldn't surprise me at all any of those 3 teams make the Super Bowl. I will give you a shocking scenario. I think Pittsburgh gets in. They win against Cleveland. Buffalo beats New England. And the Jets beat Miami. Miami, we don't even know who's playing quarterback for them this week. And I can see the Steelers sneaking in like they did a year ago, and my kids and wife jumping in glee.
We will see. Looks like Teddy Bridgewater will get the start this weekend. Looks like the finger injury won't hinder him from that. I was watching on Get Up just moments before the show. Let's go over the NFC scenarios. Wayne, do you have anything on the AFC real quick? Any comments?
I think you put them to sleep.
Yeah, the 2 teams that I like in the AFC going forward is Buffalo and Kansas City, and we'll just have to see how that works out.
It very well could come down to those two, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, guys, let me catch my breath. NFC scenarios, they're a little bit easier. Number one seed, bye, and home field advantage. Eagles clinch with any of the following: a win or a tie versus the Giants, a Cowboys loss or tie at the Commanders. Still got to get used to calling them that. 49ers loss, tie versus the Cardinals. 49ers clinched the number one seed with any of the following: a win versus the Cardinals plus an Eagles loss versus the Giants. And the Cowboys can still clinch a number one seed and win the division with a win at the Commanders plus an Eagles loss versus the Giants plus a 49ers loss or tie versus the Cardinals. The NFC East title, again, basically, we'll go over it again, but it's the same thing. Eagles clinch with a win versus the Giants or a Cowboys loss at the Commanders. Cowboys 12-4 clinch with the win at the Commanders, and obviously an Eagles loss versus the Giants. And the number 7 seed, which is wild, that the Packers are still in this. And if I'm not mistaken, they started 1-7, and Aaron Rodgers has brought the Packers 1-6. Thank you.
2-6.
And they're 8-8, and they can clinch with a win versus the Lions. It's unbelievable the good football that Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, all the Aarons over there in Green Bay are doing. Jair Alexander, the cornerback, has played a great role in that defense. Packers win versus Lions. They're in. Lions can still clinch. Lions 8-8 clinch with a Packers and a Seahawks loss or tie versus the Rams, or tie versus the Packers and Seahawks loss versus the Rams, or a tie versus the Packers and a Rams-Seahawks tie and a Commanders win versus the Cowboys. Seahawks can still get in there. They're 8-8. They clinch with the win versus the Rams and a Packers loss or tie versus the Lions, or a tie versus the Rams and a Lions-Packers tie and a Commanders loss tie versus the Cowboys.
We're there. You could have just said with the last scenario, Detroit wins, they're in with a Seahawk loss. Green Bay wins no matter what, and Seattle has to hope that Detroit beats Green Bay. That would have been so much simpler.
Yeah, it would have been, but, I wanted to get technical. I wanted to get technical for our listeners so they just know the ramifications of Week 18 and how close the season's been. It's been a great NFL season, and my favorites in the NFC moving forward, man, I do. I like the Vikings. I think they've won a lot of close games. I think Kirk Cousins playing pretty well. Jefferson on the outside. The addition of Hawkinson has been huge. Dalvin Cook can run the ball. They got a pretty good defense. I like the Vikings in the NFC, and tell you what, if these Packers get in, it's the same way with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They would be a nightmare matchup for anybody because Aaron Rodgers in December and in January is pretty good. And I believe they won their Super Bowl as a wild card back in the day. So he can do it. Discount double check. Watch out. And if the Packers get in, they are one of my favorites to win the Super Bowl just because of Aaron Rodgers, and he's a bad, bad man.
Give me San Francisco or Philadelphia. I like San Francisco. They can take their running game and they can stop the run. They have an elite offensive line, an elite defensive line, an elite running back, elite wide receiver, an elite tight end. Now, they do have Brock Purdy is a rookie, a 7th-round draft choice, the last pick in the NFL draft. But it reminds me so much of Tom Brady. He doesn't make many mistakes. The play-action pass, he makes great decisions with a football. This, to me, is a dangerous team, and I think the toughest out. Now, Philadelphia can hang on and get home field. I could see it between Philadelphia and San Francisco for the right to go to the Super Bowl. I am a Lions fan, so I'm going to say it right now. This is Detroit's Super Bowl. They're going to go in and beat the Green Bay Packers no matter what happens. Oops, I gave that away on Sunday Night Football because Detroit's playing this like it is their playoff game, even if Seattle wins. And I can't wait to see the Lions beat Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field and take away everything you just said about discount double check.
Wayne, your two favorites in the NFC, my friend.
I like Dallas and Minnesota.
I like Dallas too. They got a great defense. Micah Parsons gets after the quarterback. The strip sacks are real. And I'm questioning on Jalen Hurts' shoulder, man. That's a tough injury to your throwing shoulder. It's very tough to play through that and play effectively. And he was moving the ball down the field with not only his legs, his arms, and the running backs they have there in Philadelphia. It's going to be a great NFL postseason. I'm excited. We're running out of time. Let's go ahead, guys. Let's get to the pick six, and I'll give you guys final thoughts on the NFL playoff scenarios. Todd, any final thoughts?
I was going to say Dallas and Minnesota played one of the most memorable playoff games in NFL history back in the 1970s when they came up with the term the Hail Mary. Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson, who I've had on this program
We have
before.
had on the
In the
show.
summer
Hall of
of
Famer now. He got in.
Yes, he, you know, in the summer of 2020, I did have him on ATL Prime Sports as a guest in that play, the Hail Mary against Minnesota in Old Metropolitan Stadium, in Bloomington, Minnesota, and Flint, Michigan, my hometown, where I'm originally from. Paul Krause was born there, who happened to be in on that play, just slightly away from the football. Paul Krause has the most interceptions in NFL history, a record that still stands today. And you want to know something about Paul Krause very quickly? You can go online. You could have watched a Minnesota Viking game with him in his garage. And he's got an old, listen to this, Wayne, an old Minnesota Vikings classic car. You can go to his Twitter account, check it out, and you can watch the game with him pregame and postgame in his garage. I think it's a small fee, and he would have food and drink and everything with you. And also, you can go to his website and still, I know I'm advertising for him, I swear I am. You can you can also get a signed jersey from him. A lot of the old time players are doing that now, where you can go to their website and get a signed jersey from them for a fee. It's just an incredible story what Paul Krause is.
Let's move on to the pick six. Through 89 games, Wayne has a 2-game lead over TC, a 1-game lead over myself at 40, 44, and 5. Well, obviously, we only got 5 games in last week, so that is
right.
the oddball there. Let's go with the College Football Playoff National Championship. TCU number 3, 13-1 versus number 1 Georgia, 14-0. Georgia, we're going with Wednesday spreads, by the way. UGA, a 12.5-point favorite there. Over-under was 62.5. It is at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, Monday, January 9th at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. We'll go Wayne, TC, myself on this one. Why not?
All right. Well, I'm taking TCU and the points on this one, but I'm wondering if the people in California are even going to be interested enough in this game. There'll probably be a lot of out-of-towners in this game.
Well, there will be. They're all going to be coming from the Southeast and Southwest. That's for sure. You're going to get local folks in the game. I've already stated it. Georgia big.
Georgia big for me as well. I think they will cover the spread. I think they'll get their act back together on the defensive side of the ball. I think they'll prepare well for Johnson, Duggan, and Miller. I think they will win this game by around 17 points. I do think it'll be close for about a half. That's our last college football game of the year. What a great season. Let's go to the NFL. Titans, Jaguars. Titans 7-9, Jaguars 8-8. Battle for the AFC South. Jacksonville 6-point favorites. Over under in that one's 40. Saturday night, 8:15 on ESPN and ABC. I'll go first in this one. I said the Jags could get in, and I'm going with the Jags. I think the Jags cover the 6-point spread. Right now, Tennessee doesn't have a quarterback that can effectively move the ball down the field. They're going to start Josh Dobbs again. Not that he's a bad quarterback, but he is inexperienced, and in a playoff type scenario, I'm going with Trevor Etienne and Doug Peterson. I like the Jags to cover.
Where's that game at?
It is in, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't even say it. It is in Jacksonville.
Wow, 6 points is a lot. Give me Tennessee in a playoff scenario. In the NFL, they're just too close.
Yeah, well, I'm picking the Jaguars to cover on this one because they're playing at home, and I feel like they've got a little bit more drive to win this game.
Mike Vrabel's coached in the playoffs too. This should be a good matchup. If you would have said 4 or 3, I would have gone Jacksonville. But 6, I'll take I'll take Tennessee.
I like it. Panthers 6-10 at Saints 7-9. This could have been a playoff indicator if some things didn't happen last week, but the Saints were eliminated. New Orleans, a 3.5-point home favorite. Over under this one's 41.5. Sunday, 1 p.m. on Fox. I'll go with this one. The Panthers played very well down the end of the stretch. This is Sam Darnold getting film on paper. I have a feeling he's going to play well and end the season well. I'll take the Panthers and the points here.
Where's the game at?
The game is in New Orleans.
And how many did you say it was? I'm sorry.
It was New Orleans minus 3.5.
The Saints minus 3.5? That's
Yep.
interesting. So the Saints.
Saints are favorite by 3.5.
Saints are favored by 3.5, and it's in New Orleans. Last game of the season. I know why you picked this, you AFC or NFC South homer, but gosh, I'm just messing with you. Well, it's a hard game to pick. That's probably why you did it.
It is. That's exactly why I did it. It's a very interesting game to pick.
I'll take Carolina because of the quarterback position and Sam Darnold, who really has rejuvenated his career under Steve Wilkes. And that's an interesting situation at Carolina because they've already had a phone call with guess who? I'll tell you, Jim Harbaugh. And I'll tell you right now, Jim Harbaugh is not going to be at Michigan next year. He's going to be coaching somewhere in the NFL. Last season, he was offered the Vikings job. He had a relationship with the Vikings GM, a prior one in San Francisco, and the owner stopped it. Jim Harbaugh.
I'm going to pause everybody. We got a Damar Hamlin update. This is breaking news from the NFL right here. Bills announced Damar Hamlin has shown remarkable improvement and appears to be neurologically intact. Prayers answered. Wow. That's huge.
It is.
That is huge. And
it's really huge.
That's great news. Of course, we got to find out other things, but that
is huge. That's just the headline, folks. I'm emotional. I played football, and that was a scary hit. Wayne, go ahead and get your pick six, buddy. Panthers or Saints?
I'll take the Saints to cover.
Saints at home, Saints to cover. I like it. Wow, that's really good news. I'm very happy. Wow, that is awesome. TC, your game. Lions 8-8 at Packers, Lambeau Field 8-8. Playoff spot possibly on the line, depending on the Seattle game Saturday. Green Bay's 4.5-point home favorites. The over/under in that one's 49. Sunday Night Football on NBC. Wayne, why don't you go first this time?
All right, I'm taking the Lions and the points strictly because I do not like the Packers.
TC.
Well, it's 4.5, correct?
It is minus 4.5 in favor of Green Bay. I think you precursed it. You're saying you're taking the Lions and the points, correct?
Right. Detroit is going down. They don't need the points. They're going to win this game, and this is Detroit's playoff game without a doubt. Aaron Rodgers has bad-mouthed the Lions over the years, and Houston and company and Hutchinson are going to sack him a lot on Sunday Night Football. These are two rookies that have played fabulous this season for Detroit. They also have a rookie safety in Oliver. So a young defense that is getting better. It does have a weakness in stopping the run, although, and we'll see if that definitely has an impact on the game. But I'll take Detroit and the points. The homer pick.
I'm going with what I said is one of my favorites in the NFC. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. I think he's going to get everybody involved, and I think you'll see Lazard, Aaron Jones, this team work together as one, and I think they'll get in the playoffs with a touchdown victory at home over the Detroit Lions. Wayne, I told you we're sprinkling it in. Here comes some NCAA men's basketball, folks. I have no clue what I'm talking about. I will preface that. Number 1, Purdue, 13-1 at number 24, Ohio State, 10-3. Ohio State's a 1.5-point favorite. Over/under, and this one's 141. That is Thursday, 7:00 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. I'm going to go last here because I have no clue. So, TC, Wayne, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm taking Purdue in this one, and I don't know what's going on with the Vegas folks. They must be trying to gaslight the Ohio State fans or something by, giving the advantage in this. But I'll take Purdue in the points any day.
Well, Purdue, they were the number one team. They won't be when the seedings come out next. They got upset by Rutgers, and you know what? They're going to lose again. I like Ohio State at home. This rugged and rough conference. It's different than other conferences. It's the most physical conference in the country. Purdue is a physical team, no doubt about it. So is Ohio State. I like the Buckeyes at home. Home court means a lot in the Big Ten in college basketball, and I like the Buckeyes at home.
Purdue. All right. That's where I'm going. Purdue in the points. And this one's for Wayne, our producer. East Carolina 10-5 at FedEx Forum, and the Memphis Tigers at 11-4. This game didn't have a spread when we picked it, so we're going to call it an even game. Saturday, 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Wayne, you're taking your Tigers in the points?
Are you
taking the Tigers straight up?
I'm taking Tigers straight up, and in fact, if they actually aim the cameras high enough, you'll see me in section 219, row A. So look for me if they point the cameras way up there in the dark section.
We'll look for you. TC, who you got in this one? I think we're all going to take the Tigers.
Well, I got to pick Memphis. Wayne sent me and you a Memphis hat in the mail for Christmas. I really appreciate that. There's no way, Wayne, thank you for that, by the way. And there's no way I'm picking against Memphis in this circumstance. I do want to pick a bonus game. We're all going to pick it. It's not going to count because you should have put this game on, and you already know what game I'm going to talk about. Pick this one first.
Well, I got the Tigers, and we'll do Michigan State for you. I got to go with Izzo and the Spartans. Where's the game being played? I have no clue. Is it in Lansing or in Ann Arbor?
It's in East Lansing.
Oh, give me Izzo.
Wayne, who do you got?
IZZO. I'm going with the State on this one.
I'm going with Michigan State, too. I don't even know what the spread is and don't care. We're picking it for fun. I like Michigan State to win this one in a rough, rugged, physical game. And as you guys know, this rivalry has really turned for the worse since 2006, since the Mike Hart little brother comment. And of course, D'Antonio and Harbaugh, they didn't like each other. D'Antonio didn't like the previous coach, Rich Rodriguez, nor did he like Brady Hoke. And of course, it spilled onto the basketball rivalry. Of course, it was a pretty good, friendly rivalry there between Izzo and Beeline. Izzo said, I can't stand Michigan, but I love John. He's a great person. So I have respect for the program. Well, now Juwan Howard is the head coach. Juwan played on the Fab Five. Izzo coached against them. This is how long ago Izzo's been in the game. And I can see the hatred for the rivalry at an all-time high. And it doesn't matter what two sports these teams play. It has gotten really ugly, and unfortunately, not only because the media really honestly fuels it and the coaches help fuel it. I don't think from a fan standpoint it's as bad because, there's a lot of friends that are Michigan State folks like Georgia Tech here and things like that. But if the media would stop fueling it, I think it may help.
Well, here's the big question I've got on this particular game is, after the game, regardless of who wins, are they going to have an amicable handshake after the game like they're supposed to?
Yes, I think so. I do. I think
they will.
Tom Izzo would shake hands with Air. He already said, what are we going to do? Stop shaking hands? I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go like this. No, Izzo will shake hands with Air or whoever walks down that far side of the court.
Guys, that wraps up our show. My final thought for the evening is thank you, dear Lord, for answering our prayers, and Damar Hamlin is improving. That is absolutely awesome and mesmerizing, and I hope he has a full recovery.
I second that. No question. It is good news, and hopefully he'll continue to progress, and we'll find out better information as they go. JJ, this is for you. Chris Hatcher, the current coach at Samford, who Georgia played in a non-conference game here, he has a lot of connections in this game. He hired Smart and Muschamp on his first staff when he's the head
At
coach
Valdosta State, right?
in 2000, correct? And Muschamp was the DC. Smart was the secondary coach. And also, Hatcher lived with Sonny Dykes for 3 years. Hatcher and Dykes, they were on Hal Mummy's first Kentucky staff not long ago. So there are some connections. Dykes and Smart do have a relationship, and they'll be playing for the national championship on Monday night.
Did not know that. Good information there, TC.
Thank you.
Wayne, final thought on the show, buddy.
I did it for you. You got anything?
I'm definitely thankful that Jamar has improved and that we're moving forward with this in a positive way. And let's pray for the rest of the football players out there as well. We cannot have any more injuries like this because it's been a stressful and emotional thing for us to have to go through, and I can't imagine what it's like for his family.
I can't either. Well said, Wayne. Well said.
Jay, one more thing. Hopefully they'll have some protection, like David said, for the heart area. And not only is it like this in football, which it's rarer in football than it is in Little League baseball and other sports. Hopefully they'll come up with extra protection because they do have a heart guard now, but they need to come up with something even better, and I can see that coming in the near future.
I can see that coming down the barrel as well. Guys, that's been a great show. For Wayne in Memphis, for Todd on the other side of Atlanta, I'm JJ Jurjevich. This has been ATL Prime Sports. If you like us, give us a subscribe, give us a like. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, Twitter at ATL Prime Sports. Get you one of these. We'll see you next week.